So, Ari, I mean, to the Republicans who are saying, well, this is just going to be a divisive political speech, I mean, it does sound divisive, no?
Well, we're a divided nation, and the president is giving a speech that reflects the nation in which he's speaking at the time of which he's speaking. You know, I totally agree that presidential art in an election year is to sound as if you're the president and you're governing, while coming across as somebody who needs to become more popular personally and politically so he can get reelected. And that's what's driving everything in the White House these days. As David said, the president's staff has already said they only have one more thing to do. They basically have quit for the year unless they can just get the payroll tax extended. Other than that, they're done. But, you know, the nation has an unemployment problem, a debt problem, a spending problem, an energy problem. The president tonight wants to solve a political popularity problem. State of the Unions really do afford presidents that opportunity. He has all the advantages going into it tonight.
Paul, how combative a speech are you anticipating?
Oh, this is not a particularly pugnacious president. You know, he is, I think, by his inclination, somebody who wants to bring people together. I'm always amused, as I'm sure Fleischer and David are, by folks who are looking for or trying to separate the politics from the government. You know, it's like trying to separate mathematics from physics. You know, I took physics at the University of Texas. It was a liberal arts physics. It was called physics for idiots. Well, people who try to do government without politics are idiots. Politics is a language through which a free society expresses itself in government. And believe me, this is entirely political, and it's entirely governmental, and that's entirely appropriate. But the president is, this point that David and Candy were making about setting the agenda is his most powerful domestic tool. 2 years ago, in 2010, the Republicans set the agenda. They seized the frame away from President Obama and made the agenda about who can cut spending. And that's why they won that landslide, because the electoral question people asked in the voting booth in 2010 was, which party can better cut government spending? And of course they went for the Republicans. This president has already, look, he's winning that all-important battle of setting the message frame for 2012, and it's more like who's going to fight for the middle class. If he has that kind of a frame, he can win.
Roland, it seems like both sides, the Republican and Democrat, are arguing that they're fighting for the middle class.
Of course, and that's what they always say. And you never hear any of them talk about the poor, talk about those who are impoverished, especially when you look at those bottom 10 states and the poor in this country. I'm very hopeful that the president will actually say it this time. He didn't say it last year, got some criticism there. But look, we also must expand this income inequality conversation, Anderson. Income inequality is not just about the president is going to go up there tonight and say the rich should pay more. He's also talking about in terms of how do we give those folks who are out there busting their butts, working hard, trying to get ahead, and they simply don't feel as if the government is doing anything for them. When you hear the president tonight talk about regulations, Republicans always say, oh, Dodd-Frank, that's what's getting in the way. The point there is, no, one of the reasons we're in this mess is because we didn't have strong enough regulations, and so don't be surprised when you hear that as well. And Paul's absolutely right. Forget this whole notion of sounding presidential and not sounding political. You're always going to sound political. It's the president of the United States who represents a particular party, and although he speaks to all, he is going to sound that way. And so Republicans will come away and say, oh, he was too political, but he is going to sound the alarm on how do I speak to that person out there who is struggling, who wants to get ahead, and the people in Congress haven't done enough to help them.
David, I see you're shaking your head.
I just don't agree. Yes, all presidential speeches, Paul Begala was absolutely on point. All presidential speeches are a mix of politics and policy, no question about it. But this president has moved substantially away from the notion of spending his time governing to the notion of spending his time campaigning. And I think we have to recognize that he has, and there is some validity to the Republican, and I think the public is making this argument. You know, who's actually getting things fixed in Washington? We do have a range of problems. Neither the Democrats, the president of the White House, nor the Congress seems prepared to sit down and work on some of these serious problems this year. They both want to spend their whole time campaigning.
Well, it certainly seems like both sides acknowledge not much is going to get done this year. Ari, good.
Anderson, here's one thing viewers should be on the lookout for. When the president goes through his policies, particularly on the tax side, have they gotten the support of Democrats in the Senate who are running for re-election? And often the answer is no. And this gets at the point both Paul and David are making. The president will be political, and that's his job, but he needs to also sound governmental. But if the policies that he's proposing tonight are things that have already been rejected by his own party, it really tells you that he has, as David said, given up on governing. He's going to try to make these ideas sound new and sound fresh, but all you have to do is look once and you see that his party won't even go along. But he's going to repeat a lot of those same old tax hikes anyway.
Hey, Anderson, I got to, in terms of the point that David made, look, when you're the president of the United States, you clearly can't pass a particular bill. You can do your part in terms of pushing people. What you've seen this president do, though, is get out of the nation's capital and try to go to the people and say, I need your help in this. Look, after tonight's speech, he's going to go to these battleground states. I think the White House should not just go to Nevada and Ohio and those states, but also go to Mississippi, go to Alabama, go to Louisiana, go to red states that you're not going to win and make your argument as well and say, I'm also fighting for you. And so a president has to get out there and push people as well. And so you can't just say, well, he's out there, he's not governing. Everybody has a role in this, and so Congress has a role plus him.